Okay, we're here on page 16 of the doctor's opinion of the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And the doctor in question is William D. Silkworth. In this statement, he confirms what we who have suffered alcoholic torture must believe, that the body of the alcoholic is quite as abnormal as his mind. So that's the foundation that of Alcoholics Anonymous, is that there's a craving created that goes beyond what is normal. That most people can handle some desire for alcohol, but for the alcoholic, his body and mind just go crazy. So I think this touches on the unity of the whole mind, body, spirit thing, which is much more commonly accepted today, but it's more radical, say, in the 1930s. So the brain is located in the body, right? The mind is located in the body. So if the body is in pain, that's going to affect the mind. If the mind is in pain, that's going to affect the body. If the emotions are turbulent, that's going to affect the mind and the body. Like the body, the brain, the emotions are all constantly affecting one another. So you'll notice that people who are free and easy in their body and in their movement, they tend to be free and easy in the way they relate to you, and the way they grapple with ideas, right? People who are fierce with their ideas, just absolutely locked in. They also tend to be locked in their body as well, in their movement patterns. So people who used to be fierce communists become fierce anti-communists, like David Horowitz. And you can see all the body tension that he carries, and the strain that this puts on his voice. I listen to a lot of 12-step phone meetings, and with a great degree of accuracy, feel that I can gauge someone's level of recovery by their voice. The people with recovery tend to sound clear. They tend to sound at ease with themselves and other people. And even if they're in pain, they tend to be fundamentally happy people, because they're at ease in the world, they're at ease with God, and they're at ease with others. Someone who's under strain, that's going to come through in the voice. The body, the mind, the emotions are all constantly affecting each other. The emotions are turbulent. The body's not going to be relaxed and easy. If the mind is turbulent, the body is not going to be relaxed and easy. Because the mind and the emotions, they all take place within the body. That's why my Alexander Technique training had such a profound effect on my life, that enabled me to let go of a lot of decades of unnecessary body armoring that I'd built up. I was able to let go of unnecessary tension and compression patterns. You have to move more freely. All right. It did not satisfy us to be told that we could not control our drinking just because we were maladjusted to life, that we were in full flight from reality, or were outright mental defectives. Yeah. Those diagnoses don't usually help people. That's not usually a way out. Right? Oh, you're a mental defective. Oh, thank you. Okay, now I understand. Right, that's not gonna be of service. These things were true to some extent, in fact, to a considerable extent with some of us, but we assured that our bodies were sickened as well. In our belief, any picture of the alcoholic which leaves out this physical factor is incomplete. Yeah. So, body is very important in Judaism. For example, it's not just a spiritual religion. It's a way of disciplining the body. It limits what you can eat, limits who you can have sex with. There are all sorts of commandments that require the body, such as tying on tefillin in the morning when you say your prayers. You step into the sukkah, the booth, with your whole body. So I can relate here. There's the AA Big Book talks about all these things take place within the body. There's something going on with the body, not just the soul. Okay, I live in Henderson. The walking paths here are epic. They're the most, no cars around. Beautiful. Right. In our belief, any picture of the alcohol which leaves out this physical factor is incomplete. Yeah, I remember a few weeks into my Alexander Technique teacher training. So I was going every day from 9:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m., 3 hours a day. I think it was 36 weeks a year for 3 years. That's the Alexander Technique teacher training schedule. And by going every day, I just felt better and better. And I was letting go of unnecessary tension. I was feeling more and more alert. Movement was increasingly easy and fluid. And so I entered the program on 3 different psychiatric medications. I was taking lithium, I was taking clonidine, and I was taking Klonopam. And then about 2 months into my Alexander Technique teacher training, I went off all the meds. And it's not because any of my teachers told me to do so, okay? I don't think you'll ever find an Alexander Technique teacher telling you to go off your meds. But I felt like I just didn't need them anymore. And I didn't. I was able to, taking lithium to alleviate your manic. Yeah, I have mild or moderate bipolar tendencies. I'm not bipolar, and I've been diagnosed as bipolar, but I've got some of those tendencies. I've had a lifetime of kind of swinging from states where I felt like the rules don't apply to me, that there are no consequences to what I do, in the manic up state, which is often an incredibly productive state, to then the opposite, that there was absolutely no hope for me. So I kind of swing between these 2 states. And lithium did alleviate that. It also helped a bit with the narcissism, because when I was in the manic state, I was much more narcissistic. Okay, lithium given to manic and hypomanic people to contain their genius and keep them grey and dull like the rest, and curtail their genius. I think lithium's absolutely amazing. It's helped tens of thousands of people resume functional lives. It just immediately evened me out. And so I think most people who believe themselves to be a genius are deluding themselves. And I think if your doctor prescribes you lithium, that in all likelihood you're going to be much better off on the medication. So thousands of people were institutionalized, took lithium, and within days they became functionally normal, were able to resume normal lives. So I think lithium's an absolute wonder drug. It's helped tens of thousands of people. It's the absolute gold standard for mood regulation. And it helped me. But once I got into daily Alexander Technique teacher training, I was able to go off the lithium, go off the clonidine, go off the Klonopam. Never had to go back to any of those. So I'm not diagnosing that for everyone else. Just sharing what worked for me. I'm not telling anyone here to go off their meds. Right? This is what helped me. The doctor's theory that we have an allergy to alcohol interests us. So, like, some people may have an allergy to porn. Like, there are pornographic scenarios that are pretty much going to trigger every guy, right? And you're kind of unfortunate if you find the scenarios that trigger you, because you know then that certain doors in your mind will be opened up that perhaps you'd be better off without without them being opened up, right? So normal people can look at a bit of porn now and again, and it doesn't seem to have any demonstrable harm. But if you have an allergy to it, your desire for it may well be uncontrollable, and can start significantly hurting your life. So a lot of these habits, they start out as adaptive, right? It's just like a bit of fun at the end of the day. It's a reward for hard work. And then it becomes a compulsion. And what started out as an adaptive habit becomes maladaptive. As laymen, our opinion as to its soundness may of course mean little, but as ex-problem drinkers we can say that his explanation makes good sense, explains many things for which we cannot otherwise account. So I remember a year, and I finally got the diagnosis in the mail in a news article that my uncle in Australia had sent me of chronic fatigue syndrome, and I went to my doctor at UCLA and said, this is what I've got, like March 1989. She said, yeah, that sounds right. And it was just such a relief to have a diagnosis, like just to have a name to what was going on. Like naming something is incredibly powerful. Like clarity is powerful. It produces a sense of ease. This is a respectable channel with no blissing out, chaotic indulgences, and maladaptive blood sports. That's beautiful. Beautiful, my friend. Yeah, people want the blood sports, but guess what? Those are too dangerous for the health of this channel. I love blood sports. I love discussing dissident ideas. But times have changed, circumstances have changed, YouTube's terms of service have changed, and so I'm changing with them. Like for years I made my living from my blog, and so I'd get up in the morning, the first thing I want to do is check my email, see if there are any news stories that have come in overnight, and my life kind of revolved around my blog. But the business model changed, circumstances changed, I can no longer make my living from my blog. So I developed different habits. And now I'll go a week, often without updating my blog. And I found YouTube, started making videos almost every day. But circumstances could change, right? The business model for YouTube has been shaken up for us dissident thinkers. So perhaps I'll spend my time in alternate ways other than making videos, or I'll just make a different type of video. Alright. Though we work out our solution on the spiritual as well as an altruistic plane, we favor hospitalization for the alcoholic who is very jittery or befogged, right? So 12-step programs don't deny the importance of doctors and hospitals. More often than not, it is imperative that a man's brain be cleared before he is approached, so he then has a better chance of understanding and accepting what we have to offer. Okay, back to the doctor's opinion, Dr. William Silkworth here. The subject presented in this book seems to me to be of paramount importance to those afflicted with alcoholic addiction. Yeah. It is of paramount importance to alcoholics, but there's a way of life here that can benefit everyone. I say this after many years' experience as medical director at one of the oldest hospitals in the country treating alcoholic and drug addiction. So really prior to 12-step programs, there wasn't a model for successfully overcoming addiction. There was therefore a sense of real satisfaction when I was asked to contribute a few words on a subject which is covered in masterly detail in these pages. We doctors have realized for a long time that some form of moral psychology was of urgent importance to alcoholics, but its application presented difficulties beyond our conception. What with our ultra-modern standards, our scientific approach to everything, we are perhaps not well equipped to apply the powers of good that lie outside our synthetic knowledge. Many years ago, one of the leading contributors to this book came under our care into this hospital. While here, he acquired some ideas which he put into practical application at once. So I was referring there to Bill Wilson. So when I had chronic fatigue syndrome, I remember my doctor, who was an internist at Doctor of Internal Medicine at UCLA, I think she may have recommended psychiatric medication, the equivalent of Ritalin. I didn't want to do that. And then she recommended the books of Bernie Siegel, who wrote a lot of books, I think, about medical miracles. I never actually read any of them. Okay. I remember my father said to me, only once, so I give him credit for that. He was a Christian minister. And he said to me once, do you think that perhaps if you accept Jesus, that God will then cure you? Many years ago, later he requested the privilege of being allowed to tell his story to other patients here, and with some misgiving we consented. Cases we have followed through have been most interesting. In fact, many of them are amazing. The unselfishness of these men as we have come to know them, the entire absence of profit motive, and their community spirit is indeed inspiring to one who has labored long and wearily in this alcoholic field. So yeah, it's got to be weird for medical professionals to start endorsing a spiritual solution to a problem. They believe in themselves and still more in the power which pulls chronic alcoholics back from the gates of death. Of course, an alcoholic ought to be freed from his physical craving for liquor, and this often requires a definite hospital procedure before psychological measures can be of maximum benefit. We believe the action of alcohol on these chronic alcoholics is a manifestation of an allergy, that the phenomenon of craving is limited to this class, never occurs in the average temperate drinker. Yeah, so this can be a useful model, right? You just get a taste of something and then you just develop a craving. So, for example, my father, he would virtually never eat chocolate because he could not eat it moderately. It was far easier for my father in many, many things to abstain rather than to be moderate. So, write down in the chat things that you find it easier to abstain from than to be moderate. These allergic, doing crack and hookers, war fever, extremist radical chocolate eaters. Okay. These allergic types can never safely use alcohol in any form at all, and once having formed the habit and found they cannot break it, once having lost their self-confidence, their reliance upon things human, their problems pile up on them and become astonishingly difficult to solve. So it's tricky because it's not like for an alcoholic or an addict, once you use something, you're just inevitably doomed to cracking out on it, right? That's not what this is talking about. It's just that the effects are unpredictable, right? You just don't know what will happen after you have that first chocolate, that first hit of porn, first drink. You start buying things with a credit card. Like, the effects are unpredictable, and you might get suckered into doing things you would not otherwise do. For example, it's overwhelming. Evidence is overwhelming that people spend more recklessly when they use a credit card. So certainly some people can discipline their credit card use and use credit cards appropriately, but overwhelmingly, credit cards tend to have a deleterious effect on people's spending patterns. When people go online, certain things immediately happen. They become much more impulsive. And They're much more likely to become morbid, much more likely to become grandiose, and it's the perils of the e-personality. So it can come from, demonstrate itself in shopping, in live streaming, just making comments on YouTube. People will start saying things that they would not normally say in everyday life because they're not getting the visual cues that we get in normal life. People go online, they immediately become more compulsive, more grandiose. They lose track of reality. They share things that they would not otherwise share. They become more morbid. So too with credit cards. People tend to make worse spending decisions when they use credit cards. Frothy emotional appeal seldom suffices. Yeah. So I remember going to a Billy Graham crusade, something like 1984. He was preaching in Sacramento, and I was deeply moved. I was deeply, deeply moved. But within a couple of days, I was back to normal. Right. So having this, lasting change. The message which can interest and hold these alcoholic people must have depth and weight. In nearly all cases, their ideals must be grounded in a power greater than themselves if they are to recreate their lives. Yeah, so the transcendent is important. Also, it's important to have a community of people to whom you're accountable. But from the 12-step perspective, you want to be operating from within the middle of the pack. You don't want to be out on the margins. You don't want to be isolated. You don't want to be just coming in and out on occasion. You want to be moving through life in the middle of the pack. We need other people. I remember talking to my therapist many years ago and talking about how I was spending about an hour a day with other people. And otherwise I was at home working on my computer. He said, that's not normal. Most people spend 8-10 hours a day with other people. You might want to up that. So we need other people. We need to be in the middle of the pack. And we also need routine. We need a habit. So I start every day with 12-step work, whether it's listening to a 12-step meeting or going over 12-step literature, just spending time in prayer and meditation, reciting some of my favorite 12-step prayers. Routine is really important for me. I want to get my day off to a good start. And if I don't have to think about things, if I just got my routine all laid out, that serves me much better. I don't have to think. I just start taking healthy steps as soon as I wake up. If any feel that as psychiatrists directing a hospital for alcoholics we appear somewhat sentimental, let them stand with us a while on the firing line. See the tragedies, the departing wives, the little children. Let the solving of these problems become a part of their daily work and even of their sleeping moments. The most cynical will not wonder that we have accepted and encouraged this movement. We feel, after many years of experience, that we have found nothing which has contributed more to the rehabilitation of these men than the altruistic movement now growing up among them. Okay, let me check the chat here. A lot of talk about Hunter Biden in the chat. Okay. Men and women drink essentially because they like the effect produced by alcohol. Right. So we all have a dream. Right? We all have a fantasies. We may work office jobs, but in our dreams we're professional sports players, or we're rock stars, or we're motivational speakers, or we're CEOs, or we all have a fantasy. And this fantasy that kind of provides the energy for our lives. That's what drives us. And it's not so much the specific goal of, say, being a professional sports player that drives us, but it's the feelings created by that goal, right? So I don't think anyone watching this stream is ever going to become a professional sports player, but we can become clear about what are the feelings that this creates for us, and then choose activities that will create those feelings. I don't think anyone watching this stream is going to become a United States Senator, but we can think about why we want to be a United States Senator, become clear about those emotions that are created, right? We choose things because of the effect they have on us, whether it's playing sports professionally, or serving in politics, or working as a CEO, or being on TV. So we can recreate those feelings. We can become clear about what feelings are created by these fantasies, and then find healthy ways to achieve those states. So people drink because of the effect it has on them. It makes their problems disappear. They're able to dance. Without alcohol, they don't feel comfortable dancing. Without alcohol, they don't feel comfortable socializing in certain situations. And so people choose the alcohol because of the effect it has on them. When the blood rushes to the stomach to aid in the process of digestion, then they don't have to deal with anxiety. Right? So we engage in these destructive activities because they're adaptive in some ways. They serve us in some ways. It's because of the effect that they have on us. Sensation is so elusive that while they admit it is injurious, they cannot, after a time, differentiate the true from the false. Start engaging in destructive activities intensely and often enough, and it becomes a very difficult habit to break. To them, their alcoholic life seems the only normal one. So for other people, the state produced from watching pornography is the only normal one, the only healthy one, the only happy one. They are restless, irritable, and discontented, lest they can again experience the sense of ease and comfort comes at once by taking a few drinks which they see others taking with impunity. So, how often do you feel restless, irritable, and discontented? It's probably a good sign that you may have an addiction. Restless, irritable, and discontented. It's a sign that you're out of connection with God, with your transcendent purpose in life, and with other people. If you're getting along with others, if you're living in the middle of the pack, if you're connected to God, and you're living your highest purpose, you're not likely to feel restless, irritable, and discontented. So if you are feeling restless, irritable, and discontented, it's a bright warning sign that something's gone wrong, something's not right. Okay. After they have succumbed to the temptation again, the desire again, as so many do, and the phenomenon of craving develops, they pass through the well-known stages of a spree, emerging remorseful with a firm resolution not to drink again. This is repeated over and over. Unless this person can experience an entire psychic change, there's very little hope of recovery. So that's what the big book's all about. It's laying out the ingredients of an entire psychic change. So I had the glimmerings of a psychic change when I initially converted to Judaism. I was just so incredibly enthusiastic. I felt like I was connecting to God and to other people and to my highest self. But didn't last because my emotional addictions got the better of me. And so my Judaism would be refracted through my emotional addictions. So I had a religious change, had a change in identity, had an ethnic change by converting to Judaism, but I did not have a lasting psychic change. And so I just relapsed to all the things that bothered me prior to converting to Judaism. I tried many different self-help techniques, many of which provided some benefit, some provided a lasting benefit, but none of them provided the entire psychic change. I had to rewire my thinking. I had to come to a place where I was at ease with myself, with God, and with other people. On the other hand, as strange as this may seem to those who do not understand, once a psychic change has occurred, the very same person who seemed doomed, had so many problems he despaired of ever solving them, suddenly finds himself easily able to control his desire for alcohol, the only effort necessary being that required to follow a few simple rules. Yeah, there is recovery, and there is change, and it is possible to have that dramatic psychic change by implementing a new way of life, often developing new friends, new habits, particularly new routines in the morning. And so abstinence isn't recovery. Recovery is an entirely different plane. Abstinence is simply abstaining from doing the things that were so destructive. But recovery means you no longer desire to do them. Or it's only rare that you desire to engage in the destructive behavior. So recovery means that you've rewired your thinking patterns, rewired your instinctive responses, rewired your habits of life, so that you're no longer drawn to the behaviors that were tripping you up. And this is where the transcendent comes in. Like I used to have problems at work, say talking too much, saying inappropriate things. And then I'd go into work and go, okay, today I'm not going to talk too much. Today I'm not going to say inappropriate things. And I'd really struggle hard against my tendencies. But that was a struggle, and it didn't really work, because when I'd get tired, as the work day would go along, I'd just revert to my old habits. But if instead I said, okay, today I'm going to put God first. I'm going to act as how God wants me to act. I'm going to try to be of service to other people. Love and tolerance will be my creed. And I kept that attitude first and foremost. Then I didn't have to struggle against my self-destructive tendencies. They just went away. By placing God first, all the things that were tripping me up started to disappear.